Welcome to Creating Disney Magic with Lee Cockerell. Lessons in leadership, management, and customer service. You can create magic too. I'm your host, Jody Mayberry, and we are with Lee Cockerell today, as we are with every episode of this show. And before we get going, let me tell you about our friends at Magical Vacation Planner. I just got back from a great vacation to different national parks. Whether you like national parks or theme parks, you want to talk to Magical Vacation Planner because they can help set you up on where you're going to stay, rental cars, flights, tickets. They can do all of that. You can call them at 407-442-2694. All right. I mentioned last episode I was traveling with Daniel Cockerell, and I told him a story about you, Lee, that probably the first or second time I stayed at your house, I noticed you were always either in nice pants or jeans, but you always wearing a long sleeve button up shirt. And here I would show up in shorts and a t-shirt, which I don't now. When I'm in Florida with Lee, I'm always dressed nicer. But I said, Lee, you are always dressed up, at least a little bit, always dressed up every day. Why do you do that? And Lee said, because you've got to be ready. And I said, ready for what, Lee? And he said, I don't know, but I'm ready for it. And that always stuck with me, Lee, that you don't know who you're going to meet that day. And then you're ready for an impression, which leads to a story that Lee has for us.
Well, first impressions, we all know, we've heard the story many times, how important they are. And our mothers taught us about it. Look good, say excuse me when you leave the table, put your napkin in your lap, don't eat with your mouth full. I mean, when you're with other people, and help seat the ladies, and all of those kinds of things. And my grandson, who goes to school in France, Tristan, he went back to school a couple of weeks ago, and he called me and he said, "Man, I tell you," he said, "first day of class, our teacher came in. She was in a t-shirt and she looked terrible. She didn't look professional at all. And then her phone rang. She took her phone and started talking on the phone. And she walked out of the classroom. Here we are, the first day in class, and nothing's happened yet. And she's fooling around." He said, then in a few minutes, she came back in the classroom in a beautiful suit, perfectly dressed, looked like $1 million. And she said, "Today I want to talk to you about how important first impressions are." And Tristan was just taken back. I think, you talk about how to make a point, and she made it. She could have stood up there and said, first impressions are important. And oh no, she did it. And that's a good lesson if you want to, people, it got boiled into his brain. It wasn't just a couple words passing by, because he saw it and he saw it, and yeah. So I think that's so important, and we know that every day we see things at first impressions. We don't give people the benefit of the doubt sometimes, because that first impression is so strong about somebody's attitude or what they say or how they pull in front of us in their car, or somebody at the grocery store, or a mother disciplining her children. We create a first impression very quickly. And so I think about that a lot, of take a deep breath when people are going to be judging you, if you care about being judged properly and having a good reputation, and people thinking you're professional and trustworthy. And yeah, as you said, it's probably more important. Don't get ready, stay ready, because it happens in a flash. They say, you got 5 or 6 seconds when you meet somebody, when they've already locked in an impression of you. And so if they know you well, then you can get away with looking like a mess, because they know that it's just that, because of your friends, or you know each other. And so it's a good thing to think about. First
I,
impression.
I remember when I became a park ranger, the first park I was at, in the hallway, the park manager had hung a mirror full length from floor up to probably 6 feet tall. And he had a sign right above the mirror that said, you get one chance to make a first impression.
Well,
And
that's for sure. Yeah.
I don't, and then he never talked about it. He let the mirror and the sign there, and then you kind of filled in the blanks on what you thought that meant and what you feel your first impression could be, because as a park ranger, And in business, or Lee just going to his coffee shop, you never know who you're going to meet, and that's going to be a first impression. So I would always look in the mirror and say, okay, does my uniform look good? Is my badge straight? Is the even little things when you're in uniform, Lee, how your buttons should line up with your zipper, and all
Well,
all
and
those
Terry
things.
Payne told me once they had trouble, and you and I have discussed this, getting the park rangers to wear their hats. And she made a big point of that. You got to wear your hat. That's part of the uniform. That's part of the authority. That's part of who we are. And because guys didn't want to wear them, they wanted to. And so,
Yeah.
kind of an enforcement there, because it's part of the show, and it's part of the probably the impression you're creating about your own abilities. And so I thought that was a good example too. And then you take today, you know, every company's got pretty loose about tattoos and orange hair and how you dress and all that. Companies have, but your boss may not have and may not say anything. You just may never know why you didn't get promoted. You may never know. This company policy was okay, but you got somebody deciding. So I would say, take that as a grain of salt of somebody is making a decision based on their own personal, and while that's probably illegal, not right, it still happens and you'll never know it. So there you go. I had a lady
Yeah.
call me this week, said my managers keep saying I'm ready to be a manager. I got everything I need to know and I'm ready to go. But every time there's a job open, they say somebody else has more experience. So I said, call me, because that may not be the case, because managers just say that. And you need to pick a date by what day you're going to quit, and start looking now for another job. There's life after Disney. You don't have to stay there. And because some managers don't have the courage to tell you why or no, or who knows why. But don't be there for another 10 years and you're still here and you don't have enough experience, because it may be something else. That's and it may be a first impression or impression of you personally, or maybe they don't like people from you or from your country you're from, or who know. We don't know, but often you're not going to hear the truth when it's bad news.
Yeah, Lee's on to something here, because it could be years later and you don't get a promotion because you made a bad first impression 3 years ago with someone that you didn't think it mattered with. You never know.
I still think about that about people from 10 years ago, 20 years.
Yeah, that's right. And I should mention, Lee talked about Cherry Payne and Rangers wearing a hat. Cherry Payne is Lee's sister-in-law, who was a national service park ranger for 36 years, retired as the superintendent of Glacier Bay. So she had the uh, burden of trying to get park rangers to always wear their hat. And it would be like Mickey Mouse not wearing ears, because people, if you come to a park, you want your first impression of a park ranger to be wearing that beautiful campaign hat.
Especially for photos.
Yes,
That's
especially for
the name of the
photos.
game. If I have one of the police officers here gave me one of those hats because they wear that brand. I love it. It's a great hat. He told me not to wear it when I'm driving.
Yeah, that was good advice. Yeah, Lee, it's funny. I was just talking to Daniel about how and why park rangers wear the campaign hat, but maybe that's for another. But if you want to know, reach out. JodyMayberry.com contact form. I'll tell you why park rangers wear that campaign hat. Lee, what is it that we need to think about when it comes to first impression? If I've always been casual, kind of like when I would come and stay with you in Florida in the beginning, t-shirts, shorts, and then there you are dressed up. What is it that we need to think about when it comes to making first impressions?
Yeah, I think about where you're going to be, what the audience is, and what the impact is. About what is it going to interfere with something you're trying to achieve or want. And if you're going to go to church, and the minute you may get treated differently by people if you look like you just got out of jail. And if you're going, you dress, I think, appropriately, and use some judgment about what's going to work best for you when people meet you and see you, and what are they going to think about you. And then if it's Saturday afternoon and do anything you want, you're out playing ball, It's just to think about the impression you're going to leave with people. And that's about what you say, what you do. And as we told Tristan once, we said, Tristan, you don't start eating till the hostess sits down. And one night he sat down and he said, who? And I cooked dinner that next night. He said, who's the host? Well, Pappy is tonight. So let's wait for him because he did the work. But just put your napkin in your lap, the basic things that tell people you're civilized.
Yeah.
You really have to have those talk with teenagers a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It is right. And it all ties back to something. I learned this from Lee. I've passed it on to my kids to tell them, look, I know culture says it's okay to be one way. Your peers say it's okay to be one way, but people that make decisions,
Right.
people high up that make decisions, they don't usually have tattoos. They don't usually wear flip-flops to work. They don't use like it's pretty conservative. So always think about how someone making decisions, how you would want to make a first impression
It's
on
like
them.
being in the army and forgetting to wear your shirt out to formation, And a lady told me once, I said, you have such wonderful children. They're so polite and so nice. She said, you don't know what I went through to get them to this point. And that's true.
Yeah,
You
that's
got to
right.
teach. Yeah.
All right. So again, Lee, the second episode now, Lee has challenged me to keep it to 10 minutes. I failed again, but I am going to wrap it up shorter than usual. But let us know, do you like shorter episodes, 10, 12 minutes, as opposed to the 15 to 17 minutes we usually do? If you like a little bit longer, we'll do it. If you like the short and punchy, I'll get better at making sure it's shorter, and Lee will make sure it's better at punchier. We'll work on it. So you can get in touch with Lee at leecockerell.com. Until next week, go out and create magic for others.